Welcome to the Luke 21 channel, luke21.com.au. Today in this presentation I'm going to be talking about the four beasts of Daniel chapter 7 and why I think they're referring to four future kingdoms with respect to Daniel and not the traditional view of four ancient kingdoms. The four ancient kingdoms, most Bible expositors say that Daniel's dream of the four beasts to be Babylon, which is the lion, Persia, the bear, Greece, the leopard, and the fourth terrifying beast, which most people say is the Roman Empire with its 10 horns, 10 leaders. Now, it does sort of seem to fit somewhat these ancient kingdoms, but because of verse 17, Daniel chapter 7, verse 17, it says that the four great beasts are four kingdoms that will arise from the earth. And so I don't think it's talking about the very end of time. It's not talking about those ancient kingdoms, because the thing is that Daniel, when he had this dream, and I'm going to read out Daniel chapter 7 verses 2 to 8 in a moment, and you're going to see it on the screen, but when Daniel had this dream, the Babylonian Empire and the Persia Empire were kind of already existing from Babylon, and then it morphed into Persia. So they weren't future kingdoms with respect to Daniel's dream. Only Greece and the Roman Empire would be, if that's what those beasts represent. So even though it does sort of seem to fit, only two beasts are future with relative to Daniel. And a principle when deciphering Bible prophecy, and it's very important that all clues must fit. We can't just have, 9 clues that fit and then one clue doesn't. I mean, we just have to think back to the Bible in the Old Testament. The test for a true prophet was that everything that they said had to come true. So if there was even one thing that a prophet said and predicted and it didn't come true, then they would be labelled as a false prophet. So Daniel chapter 7 verse 17 is quite clear that all four beasts are four kingdoms that will arise from the earth with respect to Daniel thousands of years ago. And I think I know which empires represent these beasts. At least I have a theory. And let's start by reading Daniel chapter 7 verses 2 to 8. Daniel said, "In my vision at night I looked, and there before me were the four winds of heaven churning up the great sea." That's the Mediterranean Sea, by the way. Verse 3, "Four great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. The first was like a lion, and it had the wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground so that it stood on 2 feet like a man. And the heart of a man was given to it. And there before me was a second beast, which looked like a bear. It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, 'Get up and eat your fill of flesh.'" Verse 6, "After that I looked, and there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard, and on its back it had 4 wings like those of a bird. This beast had 4 heads, and it was given authority to rule. After that, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was a fourth beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the former beasts, and it had 10 horns. While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little horn, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth that spoke boastfully." So that little horn is the Antichrist. It's the beast which comes up among the 10 horns, and 3 of those horns were uprooted before it. So this can't possibly refer back in Daniel's day, or very near to Daniel. It obviously has to be referring to the very end of time. And so these 4 kingdoms, I believe, that we're going to look at, we're going to only look at 2 today, and then in the next part 2, we're going to look at the final 2 beasts. So we're only going to look at the lion and the bear in this episode. But the evidence is that because of chapter 7 verse 25, it talks about, or chapter 7 verses 24 and 25, I'll briefly read that. "The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them Another king will arise, different from the early ones. He will subdue 3 kings. He will speak against the Most High and oppress his saints and try to change the set times and the laws. The saints will be handed over to him for a time, times, and half a time. And that time, times, and half a time is replicated in the book of Revelation, and it always refers to the Great Tribulation, the last 3.5 years of the 6,000 years of as we know it in this age of grace. So it can't possibly refer to in Daniel's day. Also, if one examines carefully Daniel chapter 7 verse 2, the vision of the 4 beasts occurs after the churning of the Great Sea, which is the Mediterranean Sea. And if you look in the book of Zechariah, he also talks about 4 winds or 4 spirits. And they obviously, it's a reference in Revelation when it talks about the 4 horses. It's a reference back to Zechariah. And this is also tied in as well. And in Zechariah's vision, he says he sees 4 horses as well, or different coloured horses. Red horses, black horses, white horses, and dappled horses. So it's very familiar, it sounds very familiar to the first 4 horse seal judgments in Revelation 6, 1-8. And that's the thing. Revelation, the book of Revelation is a compilation of many Old Testament visions and prophecies, including those from Daniel, Zechariah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, and so forth. But my point is that these 4 horses are the first 4 judgments that occur in the first half of the 70th week. You can see more on my luke21.com.au website. I've got a series of articles on the first 4 seal horse judgments for more explanation. Daniel's dream was of 4 beasts, but in Revelation chapter 13, verses 1-3, John saw a 4-headed beast with the same 7 heads and 10 horns, and a body that looked like a leopard. In Daniel's vision, the beasts have their own separate identity. They're 4 separate beasts, and together they have 7 heads, which we'll talk about. But John's vision, however, was a singular beast, and it has the characteristics of the beast in Daniel chapter 7, with 10 horns on the 4th terrifying beast. And the 4th terrifying beast with 10 horns is the very last beast empire before the final beast empire comes, empowered by the dragon himself. The final conglomerate 7-headed beast arises in the final 3.5 years, starting when the Antichrist arises up out of the abyss at the midpoint of the final 70th week. So Daniel's 4 beasts contain 7 heads in total. If we read, as we read, you will notice that the lion had 1 head, the bear had 1 head, the leopard had 4 heads. Even in the diagram, you could have seen that. And the terrifying 4th beast has 1 head as well. If we can take a look at that picture of the 4 beasts, you'll notice the different heads, and there's different wings and horns and ribs. Each one of these beasts has something particular to it, which ties it into empires that have been around about the last few hundred years with respect to now. So this gives further evidence to the fact that Daniel's 4 beasts are not ancient historical kingdoms such as Babylon, Persia, Greece, and the Roman Empire. That's what most commentators believe that they are. But they're future kingdoms which morph into the one terrifying end times beast in the last 3.5 years, and that's where John's vision in chapter 13, verses 1-3 takes over. The fact that the main body of the end times beast is a leopard is significant as well, as this means that it's mainly driven by the leopard empire, which we'll have a look at in our next episode, part 2 of this series. Revelation chapter 13 verse 3 says that one of the 7 heads has a fatal head wound that has been healed, and that the whole world is astonished. And the confusing thing is that in the Bible, the beast is both a person and a system. It's an end times empire as well. So here the head in that Revelation vision, it dies, one of the head dies and comes back to life. And that's the Antichrist, who was, is not, and yet will come. And that's in Revelation chapter 17. So, who are the 4 beasts? Let's take some time now to look at the first 2 beasts in Daniel's vision, if they do not refer to ancient empires of the past. And the first one is the lion. And I believe that the lion is the British Empire, which started around 1607, and it probably finished, its main influence in finished around the end of World War II. So you're looking at about 350 years or so where Britannia ruled the waves. And it had many, they said that the sun never set on the British Empire. It was one of the largest empires, even bigger than the Roman Empire in the first century. So traditionally, and the reason I say it's Great Britain, is that Great Britain's chief animal symbol or mascot has been the lion. If you look at the coat of arms, where we see it on the picture there on the screen, we see the coat of arms with a lion standing up and a unicorn there as well. We see all sorts of things there going on. And so we can see that it's not normal for a lion to stand up either. And in Daniel's dream, the lion stands up on its 2 feet like a man and has the heart of a man. Now, interestingly, King Charles III is the man who speaks for the British monarch at the moment. And his name Charles derives from the German Karl, which means a free man. There was a book written by Tim Cohen a few years ago, and I think he's done an update now, and it's called The Antichrist and a Cup of Tea, as it is on the screen here. So you'll see that if you read his book, he believes that Prince Charles, originally now King Charles, is the Antichrist. And he has a very thorough look at that, and he gives a reason, mainly the coat of arms. It's the symbology of it. That's his main reason. But I would reason that he is part of the final beast system as the man who speaks, but I don't believe he's the actual Antichrist, because we see in Revelation, the book of Revelation, that the Antichrist, he rises up out of the abyss, but that doesn't happen until the fifth trumpet, which happens at the midpoint. So the Antichrist is not even on earth as we speak. He comes, he's yet to come. The spirit of Antichrist has been around for a while, and we know that the devil and his demons have influence, but he doesn't come down, he doesn't rise up out of the abyss, he doesn't come onto the earth until the middle of the 70th week, which is 3.5 years until the end of the day of the Lord. You'll notice with King Charles, he's often the first one to speak at international conferences, international groups such as the WEF. He has a lot to say on the environment and climate change and those sorts of things, those sorts of issues. But the point is that the conglomerate beast consists of the mouth of the lion, but there are other parts as well. In Daniel's vision of the first beast, the lion, it also has the wings of an eagle, which were torn off, it says, until its wings were torn off. Now, I believe that if we look at our modern day empires, I mean, there's been many countries who have the eagle as their symbol, but one of the main ones is the United States of America. And it's interesting that in 1776, the United States of America, the eagle, separated from Great Britain. It was attached to Great Britain, just as Australia is attached to Great Britain, but it was attached, and then it became its own entity, its own country. And that fits in very well where the wings are torn off. It has a ancestry based in Great Britain, but it's become its own entity and its own power. And now America is the hegemony. It's the singular power that rules the world. And the US president is probably the CEO of the world, so to speak, the main politician. What America says, it gets done, and the world obeys. But it's interesting, I think that America is also Mystery Babylon, which it's talked about in Revelation chapter 18. And New York is the city, because New York is the epitome of America, and America is the main buyer, and it's where the great men, the elite, a lot of the elite live. The big companies, the Magnificent Seven, are situated, the 7 largest technology companies in the world. But there is a man called Dr. Doom, Nouriel Roubini, and he predicted that the first nuclear strike will be against New York if a war is started with Russia. You can see my blog, Who is Mystery Babylon, for more information about these types of things. Now, the second beast is the bear. And verse 5 says, "And there before me was a second beast which looked like a bear. It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, 'Get up and eat your fill of flesh.'" As I said, each one of these beasts had something peculiar about it, and the thing that we notice about the bear is that it's a very vicious animal. In Daniel's vision, the bear is separate, but in John's vision in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, the conglomerate beast, even though it has the body of a leopard, it has the mouth of a lion, but it has the paws of a bear, because bears are very vicious. And Russia is a very vicious empire which devours other countries. And we can see that that's happening in the last couple of years. We've had Russia invade Ukraine. And it's interesting, the bear is lying on its side, one of its side, and it has 3 ribs in its mouth. In other words, it devours 3 countries on its side. And we look at the countries that are on its side. There's countries such as Poland, the Ukraine, which is taking over now and battling with. There's also Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia. And so these countries, there's going to be 3 countries, I believe, that are going to be taken over in the next 10 years or so. Ukraine is probably just the first of those. And so that really fits in well. The politics of today fits in well with this vision. Because the bear, Russia, as we can see, the symbol of Russia, the animal symbol of Russia is the bear, epitomised in the summer 1980 Olympics in Moscow, where the symbol was the bear. And so it's very obvious that the bear is Russia. And Vladimir Putin has made so many statements. He's said probably about 10 or 15 years ago, he said he could destroy New York in 1 hour if he wanted to. He's got the weapons to do that. And he said also that the West can't have all its own way. They've been isolated, so an isolated country such as Russia is very dangerous. They've been isolated from the financial SWIFT system of the world. And so he will not let Russia be destroyed, he's on record as saying. So the bear is ferocious. It's not going to go anywhere. And he's warned that the coming decade could be the most dangerous, unpredictable and crucial time since the end of World War II. And I think he's right. So we've looked at the first 2 beasts. I'm going to leave it there for today. But next time in part 2, we're going to have a look at the leopard, and we're going to look at the 4th terrifying beast. And so this beast then morphs into that final end times beast in Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 to 3. And that's going to be in the last 3.5 years of the age as we know it. It has the characteristics of the other 4 beasts, yet it's a beast in its own right, empowered by the dragon himself. And that's why it's so terrifying. It's going to have all the characteristics of the beasts in Daniel's vision. Thank you. That's all for this episode, and stay tuned for episode 2, part 2.